Hello, welcome to Property Nomads. Got a special treat for you today. Our guest has got a plethora of knowledge when it comes to property, and it comes to life insurance, and it comes to all sorts of things to do with protecting your wealth for the short, medium, and long term. Adrian has over 10 years experience working internationally for the largest investment and corporate banks in the world, such as NatWest, Barclays, RBS, UBS, HSBC, and he's also been a financial consultant for Bloomberg, Visa, Accenture, and I think is it Deloitte? I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. He now specializes in financial protection, where he helps property investors like you and like myself protect themselves, their families, and their businesses. He helps people pass on generational wealth in a tax efficient manner. I am normally shocking at doing my intros, and that's another example. Apologies for that, Adrian, but welcome to Property Nomads. How are you?
Thank you. I like the intro. Appreciate that.
No problem at all. I normally butcher them. We're actually going to do a two-part series. So this episode is going to be focused on sort of more of the generic family life planning, and then in a later episode, we'll focus more specifically on property related bits and bobs. Before we get cracking on with family life strategies, is there anything else you'd like to add to that bio that I've just read out?
No, I think that all makes sense, really, and we can go through how I was corporate, got into property, and then how I found myself in the realm of financial protection.
Yeah, absolutely. So you started with a financial background, you then sort of meandered into property, and then you're doing what you're doing now. So just put a bit more meat on the bones if you can. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, so when I was, I think, 20 years old, I was always fascinated by business and like, how does money work? So I just thought, we'll work for a bank. That was my logic. I was like, they print money, so go learn from them. So I rocked up to NatWest and I said, any issue you're having in the branch, like, I'll work for free and I'll just do it to help you out because I just want to learn. And the branch manager was kind of shocked. He's like, you really want to work for free? I'm like, well, yeah, you're the biggest, bank in the UK at NatWest. At the time, I just want to learn. I don't mind doing it. So I helped him out on a project he was struggling with, just learned loads of experience about how a retail bank operates. Great experience. And then the next month I worked for Barclays corporate. So seeing companies that turn up to over 50 million a year. And then the year after, when I graduated from university, I did the Mountbatten internship where I did investment banking for UBS in 2009. It's kind of mid-crash, which is kind of, there's some listeners who've done property for a while. You'll remember the crash. So it was an amazing experience to see, number one, how does an investment bank work? Two, being in New York, and three, it's a Swiss bank as well. So completely different cultures to here. And then when I came back to the UK, I worked for Royal Bank of Scotland in the invoice finance division. So again, if businesses ask for loans or funding, I was part of the team where, we'll check the reasons why, and we'll do checks on you and then loan the money out. And then I worked for Accenture consulting for HSBC. So when the crash happened, 2008, 2009, the reason why that crash happened was because investment bankers were, how would I word this? There was a lack of risk, basically. So they were using our normal money and they're kind of gambling it. So the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK said, look, if the investment bank wants to do that, and you can't use general public funds, so we're going to separate it. So we're going to have the investment bankers there. So if you guys want to be reckless, if you crash, that's on you, and everyone else is safeguarded. So we set up a new HSBC ring fence bank, 2016. So that was good experience to see the mistakes from a corporate level of why the crash happened, and then working, with HSBC to fix that. So my background's kind of been all financial risk. And then when I got into property, I had a deal sourcing company, and all property investors want three things: rental income, capital appreciation, and then third, passing it down to the next generation. Third bit, no one knows how to do it. No one. Like, people say they do, like, they don't. So I kind of found a gap in the market, if you would kind of say. So I
Yeah.
understand what property investors do. I've done loads of property training and my own sourcing firm that I set up. I'm like, well, if you're working really hard to buy these properties and making sure you keep it in the family, you need to be aware of, the end bit, which is, tax, inheritance tax and things like that. So that's what I specialize in now.
I love one thing I would say on that. I love how you got started. So literally walking into NatWest and going, I'm here to learn. I want to learn. I'll do that for free. And I don't think many people would have the initiative necessarily to do that. So I'll put my hands up to you and say well done for that. In terms of then family life plan, I've got to be careful with my questions because it's very easy for me to sort of swing into property because we're going to focus on that in a different episode. Can you give me some examples of family life planning, things that people don't think about but they need to think about, and then how they can get started on that?
Yeah, so the most basic one, having a life insurance policy. So whether you own a property or not, everyone should have life insurance, because without you being there, like financially, it's going to have a big impact on the family. So let's say, for example, you earn £50,000 a year. We're going to gross it to make the figures easy. 10 years, you've actually brought home £500,000, right? Pre-tax. That's a massive hit for someone else to survive financially. And then especially if they've got children, that's why that's massive. The reason why life insurance is linked to mortgages is because that is a big debt. And as you know, with all your properties, at the bottom of every mortgage statement, if you cannot keep up with your repayments, your property can and will be repossessed. Block capitals, that's just standard across the industry. No one looks at that. No, I was like, what's my rental income? How much I got up by? Do you know what I mean? Which I kind of get. But because I've had that corporate experience of like risk and we just get that drilled into us, I want to basically share that awareness with general public and property people as well. So getting the life insurance for an amount that you feel is appropriate, getting a will as well that just says who gets what and why, there's structure. And then trust. I get a lot of people ask me about trust. It depends what assets you have. Sometimes it's not needed. But if you do have like a complex portfolio of property, businesses, cash, then yeah, I would say get a trust and speak to someone that specializes in that. But at the most basic form, get life insurance, get a will. That's just the bare basics.
In terms of life insurance, I'm going to sort of play devil's advocate here. I'm just trying to, from your experience in property and myself as well. I'm just thinking that from people that are a bit lazy or are not, don't always think about these things, some people might say, well, actually, all the rental income that I receive, that is my life insurance. Why would I then want to take out life insurance? What's your position on that? What's your response to that?
Oh, so the rental income, that's great for when you're alive, but when you pass away, if the people that are left behind, if they're not business minded and savvy, because remember that rental income is covering the interest of that property, you still have a big balloon payment in 25, 30, 35 years. And if there is another crash, we've been saying this for how many years, 20 years or whatever. If there is, and you're in negative equity and you've got a big portfolio, you're in a massive hole. So from my experience in the bank, you've always got to protect yourself. So Robert, if you came to me for a mortgage, I'd say, yeah, that's fine. But if you don't, pay it, my insurance on you is taking that property back off you. So as a lender, I'm protected, and a lot of buy-to-let landlords that are listening, some instances you need buildings insurance or else you can't get a mortgage. But why are you paying the building insurance when the lender still owns the asset? Right? No one questions that.
Oh, that's blowing my mind. That's a very good point. I hadn't even thought
Because
about that.
why, as me as a lender, like I own your property, right? Because you're renting it with the mortgage, right? Until you pay it all off. I own the asset, but why are you paying for it? But it's just because it's just standard. No one's challenged it. But I'm thinking, well, that's wrong. Because you technically still own it.
Yeah, I never thought of it quite like that. I guess this is a part of the point of having you on, is to use your corporate experience, use your corporate background, and almost challenge the narrative and to get people thinking. That's really the important thing from these podcasts is, can we get people thinking, and then do we get people to take action, and set up a call. We'll go through that at the end and whatnot. So okay, so we've got life insurance, which again, as you quite rightly said, if you've got kids or you've got a spouse or whatever, and they're not business minded, or they might not want to be involved in the property business at any point, then fine. So protection in place for them, fine. A will, yeah, absolutely. That to me is a no-brainer. But as you said, there's probably going to be a lot of people listening to this that haven't thought of that. And then trusts, yes, depend on the situation, but that's always worth a chat with someone to explore. So imagine that from previous podcasts and speaking to people, there's all sorts of funky ways to be tax efficient, we say, that are perfectly legal. That I should stipulate that, there's, as long as it's legal, it's absolutely fine. Is there anything else from your experience that you think people in general don't think about that they should think about?
Yeah. So when you said at the beginning, the long term, middle, and the short term, a lot of people go to the long term. So having life insurance, obviously it's the right thing to do. It's smart. But what about you while you're alive? So for me, there's 4 pillars of protection, and people just go to life insurance, where it's a bit cliche, but health is wealth, right? If you're not healthy, you can't work, get an income. That's massive. And I get you might have a portfolio and it's brackets passive. You're still liable for that company. If anything goes wrong, it's on your head. So it's a nice to have, but make sure you've got the protections in place. So for me, private medical is absolutely huge. NHS is doing an amazing job, but there's a lot of people, and a lot of people are waiting. So if you get private medical, you're actually helping the NHS, because you're coming out of the queue. You're freeing space up if you can afford it. So, but it's just, we're not really aware of that. I lived in America, and I think I got some painkillers for a bad back. I was like $100.
Wow.
That's 2009. So in the UK, we have no idea how much medicines and medical treatment costs, because we relied on the NHS so much. So people don't understand how much it costs. If you have brain surgery, like, I don't know, that's going to be tens of thousands, right? But, if you're on an NHS, you might have a wait. And, with health, speed is really important to get seen by the correct person. So I'm always going to put private medical ahead of everything. Like, your health, forget the money. Second thing, your ability to earn an income. So if you are off work for any medical reason, so it could be bad back, stress, depression, anything, as long as you've got a signed GP certificate, you can get a monthly income. The reason why that's important, especially for self-employed people, you don't want to be dipping into your savings, right? All these products are there, so you don't have to dip into it. So if you get hit by a bus and you can't work ever again, you can still receive a monthly income. So that's really, really important. I think after COVID, more people are aware of their finances and their health. So that is a product that more and more people want. The medium term, so critical illness, the main critical illnesses are cancer, heart attack, and stroke. So we see people running marathons in the UK. 1 in 2 of us is unfortunately going to get cancer. Like, they're just the stats. And if you are unfortunate to have that, you're going to need time off to just get your head around the situation. So if you have a good job and you're employed, they might give you sick pay, which is great. But that sick pay is going to end at some point, because you're not working. So if you have your own critical illness cover, you could say, look, I'm going to take a year, 2 years off, or I'm going to go on holiday, I want to spend more time with my family, or I want to get, medical treatment abroad. That might cost a bit. That's what that policy is for. So that's medium term. And then finally, the life insurance is the longer term, in your spouse, your partner, your kids, future generations as well. And what I like about life insurance from a property perspective, because properties have gone up so much in the last 10, 20 years, it's getting, let's say, your children or your grandchildren, where's the deposit money coming from? Right. I saw a stat for America. They said you need to average £100,000 to afford a house now, because cost of living, I hate that term, has been going on too much this year. but it's true. So that's why I'm getting people to think, even if you don't have a property, that one life insurance policy could be a massive thing. And you can stipulate, I would like the money to go towards my children or grandchildren's property for a residential home of their own, or it can go to them to purchase buy-to-lets in their own name. It could be just keep it in the business and we purchase more property. Like, it has a reason. And I know it's cliche, but cash is always king. And this is what this product is. And then what I would also do for all my clients is write it into trust, so you're not paying 40% inheritance tax. So I have a lot of people who they've got policies, which is great. And if it's not written into trust, it falls into part of your estate. So if you've got a portfolio and then you've got a life insurance on top of it, you're going to get taxed 40%.
Right. So just simplify for those that might not quite understand what written into trust means. Does that mean setting up a trust fund policy simultaneously, or does it mean something else? I'm just trying to simplify it as possible for people.
No, good question. So when you have your insurance policy, that is written into trust. So the insurance policy is written into trust. If you get a separate trust, that is separate. But the reason why I feel the life insurance trust is more important, because that's cash and you're always going to need cash.
Fine, so that makes sense. So let's say, for argument's sake, we've got someone who's taken a life insurance policy written in trust. They get smacked by a bus. They're, that's always the way to go, isn't it? Hit by a bus, never hit by anything else. So they get hit by a bus, and then the insurance terms and conditions say that for whatever reason, so and so is due, I don't know, £150,000 from their policy. Then obviously, take out the bereavement itself, then the beneficiaries of that, then that's £150,000. They've been financially protected from their spouse, dad, mum, whatever it is, and then they can use those funds as to do whatever they want to do with it, hopefully invest and use that wisely. But so you said, really what I'm getting from this, Adrian, is that in life, so well, apart from death and taxes, according to Benjamin Franklin, life can be quite uncertain. So actually thinking about these things, you need to be quite practical, because anything can happen at any given time. Obviously, we joke about getting hit by a bus, etc. It could happen at any point. So what I'm getting from this is you need to be practical, and this involves, if you've got a family, having a serious conversation with family. If you haven't got family, having a serious conversation with yourself and trying to get things in place that can benefit more people moving forward. And as with anything, yes, there'll be not a cost, because I don't like using that word. There's an investment in that, but that's where working with someone like you can cross the T's and dot the I's.
Yeah. So it's actually not a savings or an investment product. So I've got to be careful what we're saying, but it's just saying, if something unforeseen was to happen, then we have, X amount of money that would help the people that are left behind, basically. But like I said before, if you said, look, I want my kids to go to a certain school, if they want to go to uni at the time, all those things that cost a lot of money, it just relieves a lot of pressure. So I know when we spoke, I think last week, I think we were talking about the Rockefeller family in America.
Yep.
And they're on their 14th generation, where one person, let's say they did 100,000, next generation did 200, like it keeps on going up and up and up and up and up. And the beauty with life insurance is you get to do what you want with that money. So some people might say, look, we're just going to clear the mortgage. We don't want to worry about it. We'll get the rental income, but no one's going to take that asset off us because we own it. Does that make sense? If you could say, look, we're going to use that money to get more buy-to-let properties, like it's up to the individuals left behind, but it just gives you financial options, I'd say, when you wouldn't have if you didn't have the policy.
Yeah, I understand that, and I just want to sort of clarify my point I made earlier on. Yes, I wasn't saying that it's an investment, you're going to get a return, etc., etc. So I probably should have used a better terminology there. So I'll hold my hands up to that. Okay, so we've got the 4 Ps. Is there, before we sort of wrap up and get people to touch base with you, because this is important stuff we're talking about. Is there anything, I'm sure of any FAQs? Is there something that you're normally asked that people are taken by surprise with? Just trying to cross the T's, dot the I's here.
Yeah, actually, how affordable it is,
Okay.
because we're not taught about this, and the reason why I've done loads of social media videos on it was because if I worked for all those big banks and consulting firms and no one said, "Hey, Adrian, have you got your will? You got your life insurance?" Like, no one told me that stuff. It's only until I got into this industry and I realized my life insurance policy I had already had wasn't written into trust. They're written into trust now, but at the time I didn't. So, why are you paying 4% inheritance tax when you don't have to? But it's an awareness piece, and that's why you need, specialist brokers. So again, with the property analogy, if you're getting, certain mortgages or bridging, you want to go to a specialist who knows what they're doing. You're not going to go on a comparison site. And I think this is why this is really important. And because more retail banks are closing down, there isn't access to this. There are less, experts that you can go and talk to. That's why I'm putting everything online, and I have YouTube channels where I explain all the products in like 30 seconds to a minute, because it can be a lot for someone if you've never heard of this stuff before. It might seem too good to be true, or people always say, yeah, but insurance never pays out. I'm like, well, what is it for? And if you check the firms that, I'm whole of market and independent, I'm not tied to anyone, you can go on their websites and see the statistics for it in the high 90s for, life insurance. And I always make sure my clients are medically underwritten. Mm-hmm. So for example, Robert, if you said you don't smoke and you smoke and you die of lung cancer, they're not going to pay out, right? Because you like certain stuff like that where people will blag it, and then, but John down the pub says this, and do you know what I mean? They're taking advice from John down the pub, right? Not someone who's worked in all these corporates that knows does that make sense? So I think there's a lot of stigma behind it, and I know it's not the sexiest and most interesting of products, and I never thought when I was on Wall Street at 22 I'd be doing this, but there's more of an impact me doing this than doing that. And also, again, the awareness piece, because I know how hard people are working to get their properties or whatever. Even if you don't have a property, life's expensive. I don't want, if something negative was to happen to someone while they're alive, you slip and fall out of the bath or whatever, you can't work for how many months, your savings get obliterated, then you're going to be in a hole, and then you get kicked out with the rent, or you lose the residential property you worked so hard for. All these things can be prevented, and it's affordable. The reason why it's affordable, I will go through all your monthly expenditure like you would getting a mortgage, and then I'll look at your net amount, whatever it is. So I would never offer you a product that you couldn't afford. It's just people's mindset. So sometimes someone might say, oh, this policy is, it's a lot, but like, what is it protecting? Right? It's saying that, you're going to own that property outright and you don't have to worry about the lender taking it off you. Some people want that. They don't care about remortgaging or doing extra bit. It's whatever is a match for that person. Or, if something happens to you medically, you want to be seen by the best doctors as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. I think I went to private hospital, I think December. I got an x-ray and blood's results same day. That can't happen in NHS. I pay X amount a month, but to me, that is value, and I want to know, because if you see the doctor and say, oh yeah, we'll get back to you, your brain goes crazy thinking about stuff, and you're Googling stuff. At one point I thought I had skin cancer because it all matched. Mum's like, it's just a rash. But it was just, do you know what I mean? If you're self-diagnosed, like, you're not a doctor, you're not the self-diagnosis. Yeah. So Google is a good thing, and it's also a bad thing at the same time. So for me, it's just, with those four things I've spoken about, it's just peace of mind. And a lot of times with clients, with the back to affordability piece, it's less than dinner for two, but it's not going to break the bank. Like, you're not going to really notice it,
Yeah, again, that makes sense. So I did have, when you mentioned about people saying that insurance never pays out, that's the first thing when you said it, that resonated with me 100%. Not that I've had issues ever with that before, but I imagine that's probably pushed people up after, how much is it? Is going to be, well, insurance never pays out. So it's that stigma of, I guess it's that stigma of it. But again, as we said all the time during, every podcast that we do, this is where working with professionals, people with experience, people like yourself, it's crucial because then you just become part of the power team, and then it's impacting that knowledge, sharing that knowledge, and ultimately, stuff like this it has to be pragmatic. It has to work for all parties, and we're dealing with the element of you just don't know what's going to happen on any given day.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of getting hold of you, Adrian, because I'm sure there's people that are going to be listening to this thinking, well, I might not be in property, but I want to actually, speak to you and get some stuff sorted. How do people find you? How do people get hold of you? How do people book something with you?
Yeah, so Instagram is Adrian B Finance. If someone does want a complimentary consultation call, click the Linktree link and then click the Calendly link, and then we can go through everything. I also have a YouTube channel because I get sometimes the information is like, whoa, it's a lot. So that's why I've got loads of videos about it, the different products and the benefits of them. And then also Adrian B Finance on Facebook.
Fantastic. We'll put links to all of that in the show notes. We'll put that link tree in there as well so people can get hold of you. Adrian, thanks for your time. I've learned a lot. I've been scribbling notes, as people watching the video this would have seen. I've been scribbling notes as well. So I look forward to hopefully getting something set up with you in due course personally. And I would say to people listening to this, join us or watch out for your podcast feed or watch out for your YouTube feed, because we're going to at a later stage talk about more property specific things that you can do. But until then, Adrian, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thanks a lot, Robert.